Nice intro.
You like it?
I like it a lot.
They sent it over. I just put in a few. Every word of it is true, though. I mean,
Thank you.
I think you are an American legendary composer and a treasure. And your contribution to music is beyond. So I don't even think the Gershwin Prize is enough. I won't be happy until you also win the Kennedy Honors.
It was very sweet. I'm very appreciative of your feeling that way. You've always been on my side.
Right. Okay, now. Okay, I'm going to start off with some questions, okay?
We wrote some pretty good songs too, didn't we?
Yes, we did write some pretty good
son.
Great son.
We have a great son.
Great son.
Good songs.
Good songs.
What more?
What more? So what else is there?
Yeah.
Okay. I read your book, Burt, and I liked it very much.
Did you like it?
I really did.
And you're tough on books and tough on writing like that.
Well, when I read. But I was very, very touched and surprised, actually, how freely and honestly you talked about your life. And even more than that, how you allowed the people who have populated your life to express their feelings without any editing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was quite surprising to me. Is there a reason you chose to do that?
I think it's the only way, once I was talked into doing it, was to not have, not hide anything, covering up the pimples, the blemishes, And anything short of that, what would be the use of doing it? I mean, there are things, that my kids, our son, will read, and I don't look particularly terrific in some of my behavior. It's just, you can't do a book and cover it up.
Do you think it was some sort of a cleansing for you, to a cathartic way to just say this is me with?
Partially that, and I think partially to Carole, it was having to go back and deal with Nikki. That was very much cathartic, and because I had to go deeper, because I had to keep talking, and therefore keep talking about stuff that I never wanted to maybe own up to, face up to. And that kind of wrung me out. And I think it's good to go, whatever it is, it is. It's not a new piece of music. It's just a book about a guy's life, And I can't say I'm really proud of it. I can't say I'm ashamed of it. I can't say that I love it, I like it. It's just a book, and it is my life. And I also have this then as a record that will go, that Raleigh, my daughter, that Oliver, my son, and our son Christopher, will really get to know their father, or know their father, and have a pretty good stockpile of information of how I behaved, what I did. Not always admirably, not at all. And I'm okay with that.
It's the honesty of the book, along with the extraordinary stories about your musical career and how you began and progressed to who you are today. But it's very impressive. In fact, this is really something I can't even still quite believe, but before we came here tonight, Bob and I stopped off because another author we know, well, he wrote his autobiography. Billy Friedkin wrote The Friedkin Connection, and we stopped at someone's home just to wish him good luck and say hello, because we had a commitment to be here.
Good director.
Yeah. So I walked in, And I saw one person and then I saw a second person and I kind of did a double take. You will not believe who I saw.
Who did you see?
I saw Angie Dickinson. I mean...
In your dream?
What is the odds of that? What are the odds that I stopped by with Bob just to say, congratulations, can't wait to read your book. So I told her where I was going.
Oh my God.
And she said, no. And I said, yes. And she said, why would you?
You didn't bring her along, did you?
And I said,
come. Didn't you say come with
well,
me?
no, Bob said that. Bob said, why don't you come with us, Angie? You can both interview him.
Let's put it all out in the open.
So I just thought I'd share that with you because...
Well, that's a big one.
it's just kind of bizarre. But I did say to Angie that I liked the book because I said, Angie, you were given an opportunity to say whatever you want, and you did. You know, and I think that's admirable. And I feel the same about the things I said to, quoted as saying were exactly what I said. You know, so many people whitewash things or don't want things. I mean, I just read a book of another well-known personality. I will not name names, but there wasn't very much truth in it about himself. So, you know, what's the point? Anyway.
You ran into Angie.
Just wanted to share that with you. Okay, so let's talk about songwriting for a moment, okay?
There's no following what you just said. And Bob couldn't convince her to come along. I mean, what an evening this would be.
I wanted to say to her we had totally different experiences, but when you think about it, maybe we didn't. Anyway, let's move on to songwriting, okay?
Please.
Okay. Are you having fun?
That was a good one. That was a really good one.
Okay. You've talked in your book about writing being a very painful process for you. And I, as a former collaborator of yours and a frequent collaborator, do remember that it was somewhat torturous for you to write a song. I mean, the indecision and the carefulness with which you would decide whether it was this chord or that chord. And
It's driven you crazy.
Me?
Drove you crazy. When we were writing, yes.
I wouldn't say that, but it was, I will say I had never written with anyone.
I mean, you wrote with Marvin, and he was like fast.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. May not have been good, but we didn't know it. It was done, it was over. Could go have a little lunch and call it a day. But no, we were there for hours and hours. So my question is, do you think that this process that you put yourself through has been a positive or a negative for you? And does it weave through other parts of your life?
It's the only way for me to, so it's not even a choice. We're dealing with a short form. We're dealing with a popular song form. You got 3.5 minutes. There's not room for filler, stuff that doesn't count. You got to make it all count. So I want to hold on to it. I'll probably be back right where I was at the very beginning. But I want to see if I can make it a little bit better. And I'm very, very good on the outside looking in and seeing that that isn't making it better. Because, see, I'll get away from the piano. I'll get down. I'll get to a couch. I'll lie down. I'll sit in a chair. I'll hear it in my head. I'll hear the whole thing. And it's a tough process. I mean, but it is the process. Is it like an obsessive compulsive thing? Yeah, for sure. You lived with me, you know, I'm that way too. different part. But it's the only way I know to, I wish it weren't that way. I do the same when I orchestrate, and I just hold on to it as long as I can, until the copyist comes and says, give me the music, because we're going to record tomorrow.
Well, I know you tell the story in the book, and I've discussed it with you and Jerry Moss as well, whose beautiful theater we're in tonight, of how they had to come and take one of the records you did for Herbie away from you while they were already printing it and you were still making changes. Could you tell us what that was?
I did a terrible mistake. I mean, that's something that I never did again. It was very good in the sense because it taught me to try to stay in the moment that was happening. You win a race. Every picture that I have of winning a race and being down in the winner's circle, nobody has to say smile because you're smiling. And it's an identical look that you have. It's automatic. But if you, in turn, have just won a big race and then talk to your trainer immediately and say, do you think, what do we do? We ship to New York and we could run in the Ruffian in a month and a half. You already are in front of where you're going instead of staying in the value of that moment that you're right in, right there. And that is a lesson. You know, it's been an expensive lesson at times, but it's taught me to try to stay in that moment and do it in LA and go to it. It's so useless to do that. And I cost them a lot of impetus. Finally, Jerry Moss said, because I was going to tour in Japan, and Jerry said, you know, let it go. When you come back from Japan, you'll figure it out. You'll get it right. And we lost a lot of record sales. They lost a lot of record sales. I did. It also taught me a lesson because you don't hear the difference. It's just getting stuck on one thing and not letting it go. I think it was that more than anything else. Keep the horse in the stable, don't run him in the race, you see, right? And that way you don't lose. Keep the record in the can and don't let it out. And that way you don't have a flop.
Or hit.
Well, but you never know. It
No,
could.
that's right, that's right. I remember you saying that once to Lionel Richie.
Yeah.
When he took so long.
He lost the whole impetus, yeah.
He did, yeah.
About the horse. It's very true. Because the moment of truth comes, we put that horse in the race, and you know, he'll
Do you
win
still
or he'll
love your
lose.
horses? Are they a big part of your life today?
Not, you know, I had some great moments. We had some great moments in this family with Jane. Now, a lot of Raleigh rides a lot, so they've got more show horses between Raleigh and Jane than I have race horses, which is okay. And as Raleigh gets better, and she's getting to be a very good rider, the jumps get higher, the horses get more expensive. So, you know, I think racing was great to me at a certain time in my life, and we got very lucky with a couple of horses on very little money.
Maybe you loved it because you couldn't control it.
Exactly. That's why you just, it's the perfect thing, because you can't control how that horse runs. And it also gets your mind off of, get out of the studio. I used to love to get out of the studio, go to the racetrack. And the attitude there, I mean, with horse trainers, listen to a guy talk, you know, or Bill Shoemaker saying, after he's just won on your horse, on a stakes race, and said, it's a nice horse. It's not a smash hit in Detroit. You know what I mean? You're not hearing that language coming from a record company, you know, a record promotion guy. You're hearing everything understated because they're used to the reality of not having it very long. That horse may be hurt, may not even be able to walk the next day. And it also, racing was very good in the sense because it taught me to try to stay in the moment that was happening. You win a race. Every picture that I have of winning the race, and being down in the winner's circle, nobody has to say smile because you're smiling. And it's an identical look that you have. It's automatic. But if you, in turn, have just won a big race and then talk to your trainer immediately and say, do you think, what do we do? We ship to New York and we could run in the Ruffian in a month and a half. You already are in front of where you're going instead of staying in the value of that moment that you're right in, right there. And that is a lesson. You know, it's been an expensive lesson at times, but it's taught me to try to stay in that moment.
I think that's a wonderful thing. Anything that gives any of us joy is a thing that, if it's not hurting anyone, is a thing to pursue. I don't know about you. I watched American Idol last night. I'm an addicted American Idol watcher, and I was very happy that Candace Glover, a fantastic singer, won American Idol. And the last song that she and the runner-up, Cree Harrison, sang was a medley of two of your songs. And it was breathtakingly beautiful.
Wow.
They sang One Less Bell to Answer,
right.
Going Into A House Is Not a Home. So with those titles, and some of the titles that I reeled off in introducing you, I want to ask you, and I think I know the answer, but everyone else doesn't necessarily know, what's your favorite song that you've ever written?
You know, we have a very, very important song that you and I, we wrote some really good songs together, Carole.
Thank you.
And we had some big hits.
Yes, we did.
Really. And there's no putting That's What Friends Are For down the list at all. It's really, that was a very powerful song, powerful record.
Actually, I did Google top 10 Burt Bacharach songs, and I was so delighted to see that That's What Friends Are For was number 4.
It's good.
So in the time we wrote together, compared to the time that you wrote with Hal, I mean, that's not bad. But let's talk about it. Well, first answer about your favorite song.
The most important song then has to be Alfie. Yeah.
Me too.
And there is no piano here, so, or I would play it for you, because I think it's an extraordinary lyric that Hal wrote. And I mean, just how pertinent it was to everything then about the motion picture. And you just take a line like, are we meant to take more than we give, or are we meant to be kind? Says a lot.
Good life lesson. It's a good life lesson. That song, if I recall, was one of the few cases where Hal gave you the lyric first.
Uh-huh. Said the whole lyric. And everything with promises. Because it really had to come off of the Neil Simon book and make sense that Neil's dialogue would end and you start up with the song, and Hal's lyric would have to kind of, you know, seamlessly go in. And therefore, how many songs did we write where you gave me a lyric first? None. Yeah. Well, it works
It's
both
not that
ways.
I'm stingy, it's just that I don't write that way.
No, but you could. I mean, you really could write it.
I like to write in the room with my
Quickly.
collaborator,
Quickly.
be it you or... Well, I would go at a slightly faster pace, but I did a lot of doodling. I wish I had been knowing that I could do art then, because I could have done some very nice drawings in that time that I went between this chord and that chord. And the thing that I realized, Burt, is that you didn't Burt would say to me, which chord do you like better? So I'd go, play them again, please. And he'd go, like this? What do you like that?
Yeah.
I'd say, I like that. But it didn't matter. He then played them again, maybe 10, 15 times. I was just there kind of, I guess he liked company. But, and eventually, he was going to settle on what he liked, and he was going to ask me to write a lyric. And you're the only person I ever wrote with who really wanted that definitive line between this is the melody and you write the lyric. And I recall you also saying to me once something like, because sometimes I didn't hear the melody exactly as it was played, so I'd sing it back differently, but you would often accuse me of changing your melodies because I thought my melody was better, which wasn't the case. But the reason I'm saying this, I'm not sure, but but the reason I'm saying this, I think, is because everyone else I've ever written with would say, oh, I like that. But you really felt and said to me once that if I'd have written all the songs with you that you were writing with Hal, you'd have had far less hits because Hal knew how to just write the lyric. And I kept stepping over the boundary line.
Right.
But you've never written a song where someone put in some melody for you, or with you, or changed
A three-way song, yeah.
Three-way songs.
Yeah.
We did that.
Yeah,
We did that. With Neil Diamond.
and that's a pretty good song.
Yeah.
Turn on Your Heart Light. Yeah, that's a very good song. Let's talk about one thing that it really typifies as a prime example of you and me working in a room. And you mentioned the song before, and I love the song, That's What Friends Are For. So I wanted to start the song with an extra word.
No, an extra syllable.
You
went
word.
da-da.
You wanted to start with I
Right.
never thought I'd...
He played da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I said, great. I never thought I'd feel this way. He said, that's not what I played. I played
And I...
da-da, da-da-da. Well, that's a little thing in the book, because you said and I think I said and. But it doesn't matter. Because
whatever the word was, it needed a word.
But here's the point. You were right.
Yeah.
You were right, and I've said that in many interviews, that when I hear it on the radio and I hear that pickup of and I think he was absolutely right, because it makes so much of a difference. And also it's a better lyric, which is even weirder, because it feels like you're coming in the middle of a conversation as opposed to a statement. So I give you that one. That's a big one. No, it's, look, how can anybody argue with your process when the results are so staggeringly, there are very few, if any, composers who've had the number of hits that you've had, not being the artist as well,
right.
You know? And so obviously it's a process that is yours and will be yours forever. And I just wondered if you ever thought that if something came to you very quickly, it wouldn't be as valuable. I mean...
Good question. The fastest song I ever wrote was I'll Never Fall in Love Again. And it had to be written like on the spot because we were out of town with Promises. And I'd just gotten out of the hospital with pneumonia. That's where Hal got the line. What do you do when you kiss a girl? Get enough germs to catch pneumonia? After you do some pneumonia. But that was tough. I mean, you come out of Massachusetts General, you got a show that's playing, and you got a producer like David Merrick, who's one of the mean bastards of life, who is saying, when is he getting out of the hospital?
Didn't they threaten to bring another...
No, they're going to bring in can we bring in a piano into his hospital room? And then Merrick said, if he doesn't get out soon, we're going to bring in another writer, you know.
That was horrible. Horrible.
So you get out and you're sweating and you're standing there with Hal in the lobby of a hotel. we write I'll Never Fall in Love Again. It was the biggest hit in Emmy. So it does say something.
Good one. Speaking of I'll Never Fall in Love Again, who had the hit with that? Dion, right?
Dion, yeah.
Yet I heard you say in an interview that your favorite version of it was Karen Carpenter's.
I said that?
Yeah. It was very early in the morning for you, so it was a recent interview. I asked if I could hear the interview because I didn't want to ask you all the same questions.
I didn't even know she recorded it. I mean, you know.
They were playing it, I think. It was very beautiful.
Oh, it's a beautiful singer. My God.
That's what you said.
Yeah.
No, she had an amazing voice, and you wrote a big hit for her, yes?
I wrote it for her.
You didn't?
For Karen.
No.
Are we talking about I'll Never Fall in Love Again or Close to You?
Close to You.
Close to You.
Yes.
I
thought I'm losing
Okay,
my
that's
mind.
why I was confused.
Didn't you
I
write
thought you.
Close to You?
Close to You was written. I made the first record of Close to You with Richard Chamberlain. This is the worst record that's
That's
ever
a mistake. That sounds like a mistake, even without hearing it.
Yeah. Very wrong concept, and I have to say that it was a dead song until Richard Carpenter and Herbie Albert just heard it a different way, a different rhythm flow than I had, and they hit it right on the head. It was beautiful. My God. Different song, and you'll never want to hear the Richard Chamberlain.
No, I don't think I would. I read in the book that you had written, perhaps not all with Hal, mostly with Hal, 80 songs before you really hit that moment of being Burt Bacharach. Do you think that's what it took to find your voice?
I think the most crucial thing that happened for me was when, because we had some hits like Magic Moments, The Story of My Life, and so glad to have them after a really long period of thinking it would be easy. It wasn't easy. Sitting in the Brill building and writing with different writers, you know. The biggest turning point for me was for somebody to give me a chance to go in and make the song the right way.
Your way.
Yeah. I mean,
the way you heard it.
Yeah, like Calvin Carter was an A&R man at VJ Records in Chicago. And he called and he said, I want you to go in and make this record and make it easier on yourself with Jerry Butler. You write the arrangement, you conduct the orchestra, play the piano if you want, you put the band together. So he gave me that shot, and you know, it was so freeing. And then the more I had that chance without somebody else doing the arrangement, without somebody changing chords or making the tempo too fast. I think we lost some really good records before, good songs before, because they were done just not the only way, but not the right way. And I get crazy, you know.
Well, there's something about your songs that are so distinctively you. I mean, no one had heard pop music sound that way until the Bacharach David songs began to, and the amazing collaboration with Dion.
Yeah.
And those songs came one after another, and you knew. I mean, you could turn on the radio if you were a person who listened to the radio all the time and go, oh, that must be a new Burt Bacharach song, because the rhythms were different. And
I think there was the thing that was in common with the songs were, as I wrote these songs, I was hearing everything that was going on behind the singer. What the rhythm section would be approximately playing, where the strings would come in. So the arrangement would come with the arrangement. So it was with the song. So it was very much part and parcel, one unit. And I think that's when things really started to take off, you know. And to have the courage to go in and try to get everybody to play up to 100% and do it all at the same time. I mean, I like it. I always felt, give me the shot, and if it doesn't work, I can blame myself, not some arranger, not an A&R guy, you know. So we made some good records together, you and me, right? On My Own is one of the...
I love On My Own.
Yeah.
That's a really good song.
And I have to say this about you, Carole, on My Own. I may have mentioned it in the book, but we had a brilliant engineer mixing, Mick Gazowski, and Patti LaBelle, Michael McDonald, matching them up as far as blending proportions, who would be louder than the other. And it was difficult because Patti had an edge to her voice, and Michael McDonald, one of the most extraordinary singers in life. And we weren't getting it. And you sat at the faders, and Nick was okay with that. You sat at the board, and you wrote the vocals on the two of them. You nailed it. I mean, you got the proportion right where Michael belonged and where Patti belonged.
Yeah, I was glad you let me do that.
Glad that Nick let you do it.
Thank you. I have a question. What motivates you today to continue to perform when clearly you don't need the money?
You sure?
Yeah, I'm not. Listen, I don't meet with your business manager, but I'm going to make that assumption.
Another horse for Raleigh, another racehorse for me. You know? I still like to do it. It's direct contact with people that are in that audience that came to see you. And, you know, one example would be like, after that awful day in September when the towers went down, and we were supposed to play in New Jersey 10 days afterwards. And I know that I wanted to do that, and I was sure the promoter would cancel both concerts, and they wanted to go ahead with both concerts. I canvassed my band, my singers, and said, how do you feel about doing this? And they all were for it, and I said, we'll do it. And by being on stage and doing something for people and making them feel something, because the last 5 songs we did that day were Alfie, House is Not a Home, I think What the World Needs Now is Love, Windows of the World, and That's What Friends Are For. And so there was not a dry eye in the band. We were all crying. And if you can touch somebody in an audience, a couple of people, you know, I've had people come up to me and say, because they recognize me or see me in an airport and say, you know, I was going through cancer treatment 6 years ago with chemotherapy, and I kept playing this one album of yours, and it made things better. So if you can make things a little bit better, you do it. So that is why in 3 weeks I'm going out on the road and doing a concert tour in Europe, and I want to call the tour the You Gotta Be Kidding tour.
That's funny.
This time in my life, you know what I mean? Oh, God.
Well, I remember after your, I guess it was life-threatening accident a few years ago, you're saying that that's it, you're not going to tour overseas
Right.
anymore. But is it just that that joy of giving back to an audience that made you change your mind about that?
I think getting better, getting to feel better, and getting to know that I could walk again, and to know that the things were working, and you just move to another aspect of your life. You were saying just, I want to just live and be healthy, so I'm there for my family, my kids. To maybe I'll touch the piano, maybe you go to the next stage.
Let's talk about your family for a moment, because when you end the book, you say that you're finally happy, which is wonderful to hear, and considering, and Burt tells the story in the book about how his mother called him happy, and so he was always haps and happy, and when deep inside maybe he wasn't feeling that at the times that she decided to rename him. But you talk about being truly happy, and you talk about family being the key to that happiness. Mm-hmm. And do you think you just needed that long? And you mentioned Christopher and Raleigh and Oliver and Jane, of course. And it just took you that long to find out what's it all about? I mean...
I think because the years with Nikki were so very, very challenging and very, very difficult and scary and heartbreaking. I mean, you're not even like family connected, you know. With you, me, with Christopher, I really loved this kid when he came into our life. That was so important. And then with Jane, having Oliver and Raleigh, and it's a unit, you know, and maybe it takes a long time. It's a weird time to be, at my age, having a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old now.
Well, thank God you're here, and you're looking great. And
thanks, Carole.
And filled with energy, and think it worked out. And I think, you know, we hold on to these notions of how we want our lives to be, or let me say for myself, I held on to a very strong notion of how I wanted my life to be. And, you know, I think as I got more spiritual in my life, I realized that God often has a plan for us that's better than what we even have for ourselves. And, you know, I think the reason that all of us have been able to have a nice friendship, and I love when Oliver comes over and looks at my paintings, and is because I went on to have the most wonderful, loving husband and relationship with Bob and with his family, as well as Christopher. Yeah. So Christopher loves having tons of brothers and sisters. I mean, he's a quantity guy, and he likes to count up how many, but he can spend real quality time with you and Raleigh and Oliver and Jane. And I think the reason I can be here tonight and be happy to be here and celebrate your book and tell you how much I love your book is because I love my life too, and you love yours. And I think when that happens, relationships can change as long as you allow the form to change. I mean, they don't have to end. And the only time I think they do end is when one person holds on to a lot of anger and a lot of, you know,
for sure,
bitterness. But
we both landed on our feet, didn't we?
Yes. I'm a survivor. What's the song? What's that song? Anyway, I don't know how much with how long we've been speaking here, no one says cut or anything, but 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. Okay, 5 more minutes. Is there anything, Burt, that you want to talk about that I haven't
I think you did.
asked you?
Just
Or
ask.
I didn't get into Nikki deliberately because it's in your book, and because I heard you discuss it once before, and I felt it was deeply sad. And I mean, losing a child is horrifying. Losing a child to suicide has to be even more horrifying. So I know that when we were together,
We tried,
made
didn't we?
some very serious mistakes, but they weren't made deliberately. I know that Nikki never let go of that anger towards me either. And I understand that, but I wasn't her mother. You were her father. And I would imagine that was the most painful part of writing your book.
Yes, it was. She kills herself, leaves a note in an envelope addressed to me, which I've never read because I already know what it says. And Jane is just hidden somewhere.
Well, I know that. I know that story. I know that to be true. I know I had different feelings about it. Not that they were, this was just my feeling. It certainly wasn't, it wasn't my life, that part. But I would have read the note because I would have felt that if my daughter killed herself and left a note for me, that I owed her that to read it. Even though I would know, I could almost imagine exactly what the note said. But
I was protected by Jane a little too, who read the note and just wanted to spare me of that.
yeah,
And I was fine being spared because I already knew. And you know, you and me, we were together. We tried so hard to get Nikki well, not knowing that she could have been in therapy every day of the week, every week of the year, and it wouldn't have made any difference because nobody was.
well, the main thing is they had not identified Asperger's in America as a condition. I actually talked to Angie about this earlier in the evening, and she didn't share my point of view, because I read online today that it was in 1991 that it was officially recognized in America as a major condition, and that they found they could start to help children if they could identify it at a very young age. And that was when Angie and I actually parted ways at the cocktail party, because she told me it was in 80-something and she has it next to her bed. But I'm not saying that to be a flip or anything. I mean, the point is it wasn't known, certainly not at the center where Nikki was. I mean, that was the thing. They would send home these reports with diagnoses, and we would talk all the time about, well, what is it? They're so unclear. But they kept feeling that she needed to be separated from Angie in order to ever be able to be her own person. Now we know today, and maybe Angie knew this in the core of her beingness as a mother, that you don't separate an Asperger's child from their mother. That's just too painful. But we knew none of this.
No.
So I see the tragedy, I took part in it, and it's all very sad. But thank God you do have beautiful children who love you. And Nikki loved you as well. I mean, she did the best she could with the limited toolbox. She was how many months premature?
She was born 5 months, 20 days, 1 pound, 10 ounces. We're talking about 50 years ago, and prenatal care. I mean,
And unlike Angie, I do know how much you loved Nikki, because so many evenings, the conversation between us would turn to Nikki, and often you would be teary, and you so wanted to know the best way to help her. And
you were very helpful.
well, I wasn't, as it turns out.
Yeah, but we were both the intentions.
Everyone wanted the same thing, and I think Nikki truly was so tortured that wherever she is now, I know she has a better life and she's free from her demons, and so I hope there's some comfort in that for you.
I think just the specific of being in a room, in an apartment, in the valley, alone, and doing textbook 101 with a bag over her head. It's very hard to accept, because you have to be very brave to do something like that. I don't think she would do that.
No.
There was too much she wanted to do. Movies she wanted to see, kitty cats she wanted to have.
But in
go
the
to
end, I
Tahiti
think
and
she,
again with
as I
Angie.
recall, she couldn't bear the thought of living after Angie was gone. And because Angie did give up the rest of her life, it seemed to me, to just do, I mean, you write in the book, or someone writes in the book, that even her poker games stopped because the noise, Nikki couldn't bear the noise of cards shuffling, or she couldn't bear the noise of people laughing. So basically, she said she'd do it again, and she did give up her life to take Nikki wherever she wanted to go.
And how, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a tragedy, and I'm sure it has found its way into your music, which we should get back to for a moment so we can end on a brighter note than this, because this is tough.
It's all okay. Everything. It's all okay. Go.
That's good that you're okay with it all. That's good.
Your music is quintessential American. Have you ever seen yourself as an American when you traveled abroad, or you transcend that and see yourself as a globalist musically? What is your view when you travel around the world?
I think I understand what you were saying. I mean, I feel it's a very universal language. So I feel playing my music in Europe, or we just played in Brazil. It's a universal language. It works, you know. And I think, does that answer your question? Sorry.
Good evening, Mr. Bacharach. Very nice to meet you. Thank you very much for this evening. Thrilled to hear that you're going to Europe. As a singer myself, who are the singers today that you are really excited by, who are singing on stage, whether they're known by the masses or in a small coffee house? Who do you get excited to listen to?
The girl who won last night, though I didn't see American Idol, she could be a big star. She could be very exciting. There have been people that have come off, young singers that have come out of American Idol. Carrie Underwood. Yeah. Some very good people have been exposed. And the runner-ups sometimes just, it's a very tough business out there for new singers, new composers, new singers. Big respect for Alicia Keys, you know. What's his name? Who wrote, what is this song? Just piano, voice.
Adele?
Oh, Adele's brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, I thought you were
John, yeah. John Legend, absolutely. Big talent.
My mother was a piano teacher. When her students did something exceedingly well, she gave them a treat of choosing sheet music to learn. They mostly chose yours. Why do you think that would be?
Well, it was very brave because my music is very hard to play.
And sing.
Yeah, courageous.
I think your talent as an arranger is untouchable, unbelievable. I was wondering, was there a song that was particularly easy to arrange or particularly difficult
To arrange.
to arrange?
To arrange. They're never easy.
You should have gotten that from the interview.
Because I too am looking for the one thing I take pride in, that I'll never really be accused of being a busy arranger, of overcrowding the spectrum of music. I dislike that so much, and I think it's important when you know that you give space, and too many arrangers or enough arrangers kind of go wall to wall music. You know, let's start the strings there. And, I mean, the great lesson for me in scoring Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid, was to have a director like George Rahal say, I don't want music here, I don't want music here, I want these different parts of the movie, and I want the music to be really important. So, opposed to other directors.
Well, you accomplished that, I think.
Yeah.
In a big way.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But he knew what he wanted. When I went in to interview with George Rahal, at 20th, he was seated at the piano playing Bach. Hello. You know.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Thank you. Is there a song written by one of your contemporaries that you wish you had written?
Good question.
Please, many. Many. Not going to single one out. No.
Hello. You talk in your book, I haven't read it yet, but I bought it and I'm looking forward to reading it. You talk about your life, you talk about your art, you talk about things that you've learned. I was always wondering, someone like you had a bigger than life type of destiny, you know? Growing up as a kid, as a teenager, as a young man, learning your craft, is there something in you that already strongly tells you, pushes you, you know somehow that you have something awaiting of you? Is it something that you did feel? Or I was always wondering. So thank you.
I didn't understand.
Having the extraordinary life that you've had. Not sure I did either. Having the extraordinary life that you had, was there something in you that knew you were destined to have this life as throughout your journey? I think, is that right? From when you were young, did you know?
No, I'm clueless what I was going to do. Just flowing, you know.
I thought you wanted to play football.
Yeah, I mean, I got out of the Army. I hadn't a clue what I wanted to do with my life. Somebody got me a job playing piano for Vic Damone. You know.
I wish you could tell one story here tonight, unless there's a lot more questions, and then I don't want to.
Tell it.
I wish you would tell the story of, you know, Burt talks about it in his book. He conducted for a number of years for Marlene Dietrich, who I don't know how many of you ever saw or know, but was legendary. And the story that I just still can't not laugh at when I hear is the story you tell about when you were traveling in Russia, I believe. Right. Germany or Russia?
Russia.
Could you tell that story when you used to there used to be different acts, and
There always was a different first act wherever Marlene would play in Russia, and whatever theater. It would be for different workers one night, as far as the audience. And we'd always have a first act, entr'acte, I guess it is. And there were different components, and they were different from show to show. In Leningrad, we'd have maybe 3 shows where you had a pas de deux team, a tap dancer, a dog act, right? A juggler. And the one time coming across stage after having just the worst dinner in the world in a restaurant that was recommended near the theater, Marlene and me coming across the stage. And the opening acts on stage, and they're warming up, and dog acts jumping through the hoop, and then the juggler's juggling his ball, and one ball comes down and hits Marlene on the head. And she goes, ooh. And I take her into the dressing room. And I say, you okay? And she, yeah. Well then, I come back 5 minutes later because, we are just isolated. We don't have Americans around. We don't have anybody really. Some people speaking French. But, Marlene, are you sure you're okay? And she said, Burt, this is the first song that she's singing on the stage. So she goes, a cappella, you're the cream in my vat. I mean, she never had a great sense of humor. She's kind of rude. So I didn't think she was really pulling my leg. But I was hoping she was pulling my leg. Because you're somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And is something wrong with her brain, So, you sure you want to see a doctor, Marlene? She said, I'll be back in 10 minutes. I come back in 10 minutes. Marlene says, third song that she sings, just Molly and me, and baby makes fat. Scared. She got on stage that night, and every song went the same way. Go see what the boys in the la 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 la. Everything was la 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 la. Starting out with the title la la and go all the way that way. And I'm trying to convince her to go to the hospital in Leningrad, but we're taking the train back from Leningrad to Moscow. And I'm not sure she's going to make it, I don't know if she can be alive when the train gets to Moscow. So she calls me into her compartment and she says, if I die, you call Maria, that's her daughter, and she's got the A list and the B list for the funeral. I mean, the music sucked, conducting for Marlene. But being out on the road with Marlene, I got to see the world in a way I never would have seen it in another way.
Fantastic.
That was the story, right?
Yeah. I love that story. And I love the way you tell it.
One of my favorite albums of all time is Painted from Memory, which you did with Elvis Costello. I remember reading that there were some points in the writing where you would be in one hotel room somewhere in the world, and he would be in another, and you'd be faxing song ideas to each other. And I thought that was so different from what we hear about the Brill Building, where writers were thrown together in a room. I was wondering if you could speak to, over the decades that you've been writing, how the collaboration process might have changed for you, or
It was a very interesting process of writing that. We take great pride in that album. And it's, I value it as a great treasure. And working with Elvis, because there's somebody who also contributed music. He'd be playing guitar in a hotel room, and I'd be on a keyboard, or we'd both be on keyboards, and the end result is we wound up with a very, very powerful album. And we are making this into, I'm glad you said that about Painted
Yes,
for Memory.
I was going to ask you that, but it's great.
We're making this into a musical that Chuck Lorre, who is the creator of 2.5 Men and Big Bang Theory, and Chuck, for 8 years, has had this dream that he wanted to turn this record into a musical. And he's written a book with Stephen Sater, who wrote Spring Awakening, and Elvis and I have about 7, 8 new songs to write because of the way the situation is. And so it's a better goal than saying, well, we're going to write for this new artist that we found, but we don't have a record company yet because there are no record companies left.
Well, Mo can come up and talk about that. Mo Austin is here tonight.
Yeah, Mo.
Well, let me just say, I think you should buy the book. I think you won't be bored for a moment, and I think it's a beautifully honest book, and it celebrates a brilliant composer. So,
Thank you, Karen.
thanks.